Good morning everybody, it's Christian from Serene Education with the 4 major analysis update for the 13th of June 2011. Going to be looking at our 4 majors this morning on our CTC strategy template, starting with the Euro against US dollar. Let's have a look at the daily. You can see that the past 3 days, Friday in particular, we had a nice bearish down candle. This has now taken us to a previous support and resistance level. Price support and resistance along this area, and we're now trading against price on the Asian market session, and the European session open has seen us trading lower but subsequently finding support at this level. Are we going to see a bounce or consolidation around this range? You'll notice that the candle now, even though it's blue and the CTC is all blue, we have a red arrow, but this will not be a definite confirmation until this day candle has formed. So the close tonight and the open of Tuesday's candle, if this is still red, then it's giving us a indication for a heads up signal. We could see possible consolidation, etc. So intraday, let's have a look at the lows of this candle here at 1432.40. So remember that 1432.40. Okay, so we have I can take that information now. There we go. So you can see on a 4-hour chart how we've had price support, resistance, 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 support along this area here. So if price is still trading above this area going into the latter part of this week, then we could see a possible bounce occurring or consolidation. Notice we're trading below all the moving averages in a 4-hour time frame, and we've given a sell signal, so everything's looking good for further shorting opportunities, but we had to see a break and close lower than that area. And because there's quite a strong support and resistance in the past, then there's going to be a very significant area we could see a possible bounce. So ideally we need to see a close lower than that, a bearish close lower than that, to confirm further downside movement. Otherwise what we could see is price consolidating on this area and then a push to the upside again. So heads up guys, got to break and close lower than that ultimately today to see further extensions lower. Otherwise we're not interested in any trading until such time as it's done so. If indeed we do see a bounce on this area, this long-term support and resistance, then obviously we could see it bounce back up to the 20 period moving average of the 50, or to the previous resistance level highs and lows at roughly the 14,400 mark. So make a note of that. On our 4-hour, for example, 14,400 is up there. So look at our hourly chart, put that in. You can see the 14,400 on the 30-minute chart, for example, is now just slightly above the 50 period moving average. You can see the consolidation range that we're seeing on this pair, and now if it's able to break above the intermediate resistance support roughly around the 1435.50 mark, notice here price support, new resistance, then we could ultimately look at this area here around the 1440 as our new target. Is there enough pips in here to see any profits to the upside? Yes, there is. If you're willing to take a trade, a quick trade to the upside, if we get a confirmation break, then it would be feasible to do so on this time frame. Next up is sterling against US dollar. Let's have a look at the daily. Notice the huge bearish candle that we saw on Friday after the squeeze. Price has been squeezed to the downside, and this is the major trend for this pair. Price is now heading towards a test of the major trend. If you looked at that, then we could see potential of a bounce soon. There's a consolidation, and price is trading at that level. Are we going to see a bounce now before we see further continuation? We could see a bounce along a major trend to the upside and see a push higher back to this intermediate trend that we saw earlier. Major trend in play as we speak. Could see consolidation on smaller time frames. Let's have a look. Yeah, on our hourly, for example, you can see there's definitely a support area being forged at 16,2200. There again on the 30-minute chart, definite support area. You can see how price has been finding support on a number of hours. Notice, however, that the moving averages are evenly spread out. and if you took, there's the major one or the intermediate. As we stand here, you can see the price is now broken through. Ideally we want to see a break above the Asian market, the prior high here. It's broken through the swing, and now we're looking at further upside movement to ideally that level here at 1625.50, and ultimately if it breaks above that, then we're going to be testing the previous swing low, which is up here at 16305. So be aware of these. As long as it stays above the 162200, then we could see a possible consolidation range, because on a major we're trading higher than, we're just now testing the major trend, so we could see a consolidation taking place. Ideally break higher than the 1625.50 would definitely give us further scope for upside movement for the remainder of the week. Next up is the US dollar against Swiss franc. Let's have a look at the daily time frame. US dollar gaining strength against the Swiss franc in the last week or so, and we've seen price bounce on the 83.50 mark to the upside. Here again it tackled the previous swing to the downside. You'll notice here this downtrend here on the daily. Price broke through and it's now tested, and it's finding a bit of support above that area. It needs a kick on from there. So if it can stay above open of this candle here at 84.22, so in today, if it can stay above the 84.22 mark and see price kick on 84.22, roughly there, then hopefully we can see price kick on to the upside. Notice the higher swing highs as price has been going to the upside. The CTCs in our favor, and this is after the consolidation that we saw roughly around the 83.300 mark. So if we can find support above this area and stay above the 84.200, if it can't break below that and above the 50 period moving average, then we could see price retesting higher highs roughly around the 85.200 mark on this particular pair. So very important to be aware of that. Stay above the areas here at 200. There we go. So you can see the prior resistance and support around that area. If we can stay above that band and trading high, you can see that it's not trading lower than the 8400 on the 4-hour time frame. Then we could see pushes to the upside. CTC is now gone blue on the 4-hour chart, so showing a possible buy entry. If that's the case, then we can see price just shy of this particular candle here, or area of support, previous support at roughly the 84.77 mark. Break higher than that, then we could see the 85.50 mark being attempted. Higher than that, then we're going to see it's trading well to the upside, and we're going to see a genuine reattempt of daily highs around about the 85.50 mark in particular. So Chief is still bullish against the US dollar. You can see on the 30-minute time frame we've just seen a break to the downside. However, price is now trading to the upper end of that. As I mentioned, as long as price can trade above the 84.200 mark, then you'll notice that on the 30-minute chart we're still getting higher swings, and that will dictate price movement to the upside. So break below 84.200 and close lower with a significant bearish candle would confirm that we're looking for downside movement now after the consolidation range we've seen on a daily in the past week or so. But as that consolidation range gets longer and longer, i.e. it stays around these levels and time moves on, then there's possibility of further upside movement creeping in as the momentum shifts between a bearish outlook to a bullish outlook. Last pair of the day is US dollar against Japanese yen. Let's have a look at the daily time frame. Here again, like its Swiss counterpart, we've seen price testing or playing around with the 80 mark that it's been to in the previous. Notice here early May we saw a bounce, and we're now testing that area. We saw a breakthrough, however that wasn't able to materialize, and we saw a bullish engulfing that's actually closed higher, and we've seen price revert to the upside. However, on Asian market trading and the European session open today, we saw the Asian market take it up well up to highs around about the 80.67 mark, but we've seen price now trading at the lower end of the candle, the spectrum, and looking quite negative, indecisive. Two indecision candlesticks appearing now. Notice, however, that price action is still to the downside, and we are now testing an intermediate trend lower. So indecision as we've started hitting this resistance level, which happened to be the 20 period moving average on the daily time frame. Ideally we need to be trading up higher than that time frame, noticeably because it's testing those areas happen to be a previous support area. So you can see at 80.70, very strong area of support, previous support, and the trend line. So this is going to be a new resistance level, and we're going to see price reverting to the downside. It'll happen to remain if this candle can close like this and see more action at the bottom end of the candle. It just could be confirming that there's still bearish sentiment in this overall, and we should be reattempting the 80 mark quite soon. So keep a heads up on that. Trading intraday, have a look for potential breakouts. Notice on the hourly, for example, we still have swing highs. However, we've had a number of bearish candles just recently, and we can see we've come down from previous highs. 80.70, as I mentioned, is the previous support and resistance level on the long-term time frame, but also the trend line is governing at that level. The major trend line or minor trend line to the downside on a daily is in fact above us, so be aware of it. It's got to be trading well above these areas here to confirm bullishness still in this pair, and it's got to do a hell of a lot of work in order to do exactly that. Notice, however, you can just make it out. Our 200 period moving average is now below price as it stands now. So could we see a potential support occurring at this level? What about the 80.35 bounce? If that's the case, then we're going to have potential, because now it's trading above the 200 period moving average, which is institutionally a very important moving average, and it's trading above it, then obviously it's considered bullish. If we see a bounce at 80.35, then we could see a reattempt of this major trend to the downside on the higher time frames, and if we do that, then we're going to see further confirmation that there's still bullish intent in this on the intraday time frames, and we're going to see a reattempt of those highs quite soon. So at a cross level at the moment now, failure to find support at 80.35 would definitely confirm that there's still negativity in the market, and we're going to see another potential drive to the downside. And then we look at possible swings to the downside. There's one here at 80.25 to start with, another major swing roughly as we go into the 80 again, which is the long-term support and resistance level, very strong one. So that's ideally your long-term target for now if it remains bearish in this outlook. And then we've seen the wicks to the downside. Close below 79.75 would definitely confirm that there's long-term still bearishness, and we should be looking for all-time lows on this going outlook-wise long-term for this pair. Hey guys, hope you have a fantastic trading day. It's the first day of the week. News out, New Zealand had another earthquake last night in Christchurch. We had the previous one in February, so really not the best news for them when we've seen New Zealand dollar pulling back on previous highs recently, and this is just going to play into the hand. We've seen a huge gap down in the market last night, and the New Zealand dollar is trading at a low in as many weeks. So there's some news out there, and not a lot of news out today in particular because there's a lot of bank holidays in Europe. So we have a lot of speakers. However, this afternoon we've got bank holiday chief, Euro for the French, the German markets. Later this afternoon at 3 p.m. we have the ECB President Trekker speaking, and then 7 p.m. this evening we have the MPC member Wheel speaking for sterling. So not much news out today, so we could see a bit of movement either way. It could be quite quiet because the major markets in Europe are closed for today, but the market still moves, however. So just make sure you follow your analysis, and if you are using the CTC strategy, make sure you follow the rules of it and apply the correct money management to go with it. Otherwise, have a fantastic day to the start of the new week, and most importantly, trade serenely.